Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for MMA fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and I'm here to get you ready for the upcoming UFC fights. In this series, I'll be watching tape and providing my real time analysis on how I think the fights are going to go. I'll be watching for fighters' strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies, pairing that with Fighting Stats' exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else to give you a prediction on how I think the fights are going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Art C, and today we are breaking down the UFC 300 fight between Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. So this one is an exciting fight here. Charles Oliveira, the former lightweight champion, takes on the up-and-coming Tsarukyan. What we're going to do is we're going to break down the fight. We're going to go deep into all of the fighting stats, see what the numbers tell us. We've watched all the fight tape on Tsarukyan. We've seen all of the fight tape on Oliveira. So I will give you my prediction in terms of how I see the fight going out, what each fighter wants to do. And then we'll go into the numbers. We'll see if we can set the line, see where the prop lines should be, give us where the best bets and the value bets will be, so you won't want to miss that. So let's get started here. We put Charles Oliveira here on the blue side. We have Arman Tsarukyan on the red side. Right away, the big numbers that pop out. Charles Oliveira, 22-9 in the UFC. 18% of Oliveira's wins are coming from KO. 73% of Oliveira's wins are coming from submission, and only 9% of his wins coming by decision. Of his 9 losses, 44% of his losses were coming from KO, 44% from submission, and 11% from decision there. Both guys are going to stand orthodox. Oliveira going to have 2 inches of reach and 3 inches of height, so worth noting there. On the Arman Tsarukyan side, he is 8-2 in the UFC. 50% of his wins coming from KO, 50% coming from decision, 0 wins coming from submission there. And he has 2 losses, both coming from decision, has never been finished in the UFC there. So let's get into the detailed striking numbers. Oliveira first here. So here, his strike breakdown, 57% of his strikes landed are going to be distance strikes, whereas 21% of his strikes landed are going to be in the clinch, and 22% of his strikes landed are going to be at the ground. We do see Oliveira walking forward. He does like to clinch and throw ground strikes, so those numbers match up there. In terms of target breakdown, 69% of his strikes goes towards the head, 21% towards the body, and only 10% leg kicks. In terms of striking accuracy, 45% head strike accuracy, not bad, 69% to the body, and 81% leg kick accuracy. This one kind of threw me off a little bit. Average strikes thrown by round. So Oliveira starts out a little bit strong. 26 strikes thrown in round number 1, drops off to 24 in round number 2, and only 16 strikes thrown in round number 3. Worth noting, strikes landed, 14 strikes in round 1, 14 strikes in round 2, and only 8 in round 3. Knockdowns, though, big knockdown numbers here. 5 knockdowns coming in round number 1 and 3 knockdowns in round number 2. And then you can see the leg strikes, head strikes by round there, averaging 2 leg strikes per round in rounds 1 and 2 and 3, actually. And then body strikes 4, 4, and 1. And then head strikes going 8, 8, and 4 there. So we talked about the knockdowns again, 8 knockdowns in total in the UFC. Overall striking, he does have one of the longest tenured careers in the UFC. Overall significant strike at 54% there. I wanted to go through some of these numbers again. Not a huge leg kicker. We talked about only 10% of his leg targets towards the target towards the legs. Through 1 against Dariush did not land. Through 1 against Justin Gaethje, through 2 against Justin Gaethje landed 1. Through 3 against Poirier, 3 against Chandler there. So not a ton of leg kicks, only landing 3 to 4 maximum leg kicks there. 4 against Jared Gordon early in that fight. So worth noting there again. Most of his strikes, though, again coming from, not most, but a big bunch of his strikes coming from the ground. We can see against Dariush landed 16 of 20 on the ground. Against Poirier in round 2, 18 of 25 on the ground. So he is active on the ground in terms of ground strikes. Same thing in the clinch, throwing up some big clinch numbers there against Gaethje and Poirier that we saw. Going down a little bit further, Nick Lentz, 7 of 12 in round number 1 in the clinch. Tamer, 7 of 11 in the clinch there. In terms of knockdowns, he's scored 1 against Dariush in round 1. Last one there against Justin Gaethje. That was pretty impressive. Justin Gaethje normally pretty durable. Knocked down Chandler twice there in round number 2. And then before that, Jerry Gordon, Nick Lentz. So it does have a decent number of knockdowns. Again, not a ton of wins by KO, but does have a fair bit of knockdowns. He is a little bit flashy. He throws a lot of big, heavy strikes. Because he's so good on the ground, he's not really afraid of getting taken down, so he'll throw a lot of jumping knees. But we'll get into the striking differentials and what he likes to throw here. So let's go into the defensive striking. These numbers are pretty interesting as well. 67% of the strikes landed at him are at the distance, 10% in the clinch, and 23% on the ground. So he has eaten a good chunk of ground strikes as well. In terms of target against, 80% of the strikes landed against are towards the head. 14 towards the body, and only 6% towards the leg. So hasn't seen a ton of leg kicks either. I guess that's because of the threat of the takedown, but we'll go into some of the numbers there. Defensive striking, 44% head strike defense. That's not very good. 66 to the body, that's fine, and 71% to the legs. In terms of strikes absorbed, he absorbs 14 strikes in round number 1, 9 strikes in round number 2, and 10 strikes in round number 3. Fairly interesting in that I'll bring it up here. Oliveira has such a long tenured career, almost 30-something fights in the UFC, has never gone and seen a 4th round or a 5th round there. So that's why, again, these numbers only going up to round number 3. He has fought in a couple of championship fights, though, but none of them going past the 3rd round. Now, we did want to talk about the knockdowns. He has been knocked down 4 times in the round 1, once in round 2. Those 4 times coming, we did see most of those knockdowns there. Actually, let's see here. So Islam knocked him down in round 2. Justin Gaethje knocked him down in round 1. Poirier knocked him down in round 1 there as well. I thought Chandler knocked him down, but I guess he stumbled. Didn't count that as a knockdown. Tony Ferguson was fine. Kevin Lee had some. There wasn't a knockdown there. And then we talked about the leg strikes thrown. So not a ton of leg strikes. Justin Gaethje going 5 of 8. Again, I think it's the forward pressure. Oliveira's always in your face, so it's not like you have a lot of time to set up these ground strikes or these leg kicks. So Justin Gaethje being the biggest leg kicker, obviously in this list, going 5 for 8 there. Michael Chandler going 2 for 3. Tony Ferguson going 2 for 3 as well, and Nick Lentz going 3 for 4. I do think the leg kicks is something to watch there, and we'll talk about the tendencies when we get there, though. So let's move on to the Tsarukyan side, offensively striking. 65% of his strikes going to be landed at a distance, 8% in the clinch, and a big chunk of his strikes are going to be landed on the ground, 28% ground strikes. Target breakdown, 78% towards the head, 15% to the body, and only 7% to the legs. So not a huge leg kicker. We'll go into the numbers here shortly, but worth noting there. Striking accuracy, 40% towards the head, 74 towards the body, and 86 towards the leg. Again, the defensive head striking numbers for Oliveira around 45. So worth noting that it's going to be in that 40 range there. So a little bit different here in terms of trajectory. Look at these strikes thrown by round. For Tsarukyan, it does go up as the rounds go on. 27 strikes thrown in round number 1, 41 in round number 2, 42 in round number 3, 47 in 4, and 54 strikes thrown in round number 5. Whereas his strikes landed also tends to trend up. 15 in round 1, 18 in round 2, 21 in round 3, 16 in round 4, and then 23 most strikes landed in round number 5 there. So worth noting that. He does have 2 career knockdowns, 2 of them coming in round number 1, 1 of them coming in round number 4. And then again, his striking targets there. You see the leg kicks average 3 leg kicks in round 1, 2 in round 2, round 2 in round 3 there as well. And the head strikes do go up there as the rounds go on as well. Let's see where the knockdowns were at. He dropped Beneil Dariush in round number 1. Same thing with Charles Oliveira. He dropped Mateus Gamrot in round number 4. I think that was a spinning back fist he dropped him with. And then Christos Gagagos, can't remember, but he did drop him there in round number 3. We saw all of those in the fight tape. Again, leg kicks thrown, not a huge leg kicker, but he does throw leg kicks. He likes to go to the body there as well, going 3 for 3 against Joaquim Silva. 4 for 4 against Ismagulov. He did throw a bunch of them against Ismagulov. Did throw a couple of them against Mateus Gamrot as well. Joel average. So he does work in the leg kicks, does fairly well with them. Just not a crazy high number there. He does mix it up with the leg kicks to the body kicks. He does go to the body quite often as well, especially if you're in southpaw. He likes those kicks to the body. Overall, significant strike accuracy here, 49% overall. Again, 3 knockdowns we talked about, all that stuff. So ground strikes here I want to highlight a little bit. Going 28 of 30 against Joaquim Silva in round number 3. 9 of 9 in round number 1, 4 of 4 in round number 2. Joel Alvarez going 23 of 32 in round number 2, 18 of 21. Pretty busy, pretty decent ground and pound. Likes the elbows from full guard there. But again, we'll get into a lot of the striking and predictions there. Defensive striking, 75% of the strikes landed against him are going to be at a distance, 19% in the clinch, and only 7% ground strikes. Target against 77% of strikes landed towards the head, 18 towards the body, and 5% towards the leg. Defensive striking a little bit better at 38% head strike accuracy, 71% body, and 79% leg strike accuracy. His strikes absorbed by round also trend up by the strikes landed, maybe just the way that the fights go. 6 strikes landed or absorbed in round 1, 10 strikes in round 2, 9 strikes in round 3, and then it trends up here in 13 and 20 strikes in rounds 4 and 5. Those rounds 4 and 5 coming from Mateus Gamrot, though, I think those were the only 4 and 5 rounds that he fought, so a little bit skewed there. The first time he saw a 5-round fight, again, he did slow down a little bit in those strikes, but you can see here head strikes trending up there as the fight goes on, only averaging 2 strikes landed or absorbed there. So that was the striking here. Let's go over to the grappling here, because I do think that the grappling is going to be a big part of this breakdown. Charles Oliveira, obviously known for his submission skills again, 73% of his wins coming from submission we talked about there. So Charles Oliveira, offensive grappling, I don't know if he's going to be looking to grapple here. He might. So we'll go over some of the numbers here. On average, he shoots 1.5 takedowns in round number 1, 1.3 takedowns in round number 2, 1.4 takedowns. So it's about a takedown and a half he attempts in rounds 1. And then his success rate is about a half, 0.6 in round 1, 0.5 in round 2, 0.6 in round 3. So yeah, every other fight there, he gets about a takedown a little bit early. Control tends to fall off there a little bit. Control time by round, 0.6 minutes. Okay, so not a ton of control time either from Charles Oliveira. Let's go over through the ground strike numbers here. Not a lot of control, 31 seconds of control time of Dariush. Again, that was a couple of ground and pound, I think. Tried to get the finish there. 38 seconds against Islam. Against Gaethje, 39, he had the back there, found the choke. Biggest one for Dustin Poirier, 267 seconds. That was all Poirier on the back there. Tony Ferguson, same thing. A lot of control time got from Tony Ferguson there. Clinch strikes we talked about. Ground strikes we talked about there. So let's move on to defensive. Actually, let's go over to the sub attempts here. Obviously, with Charles Oliveira getting all of his wins by submission, 40 sub attempts throughout his UFC career, 6 reversals. Do I have an average sub attempt here? Oh, yeah, you can see the sub attempts by round. 0.6 sub attempts round 1, 0.6 sub attempts in round 2, 0.9 sub attempts in round 3. So decent numbers. He's always going for something, always fishing for something here. Defensive grappling. This one is interesting here, and I wanted to touch a little bit of time on this because we haven't seen a ton of defensive grappling. Again, Charles Oliveira, very good on the ground, so not a ton of people looking to go down to the ground with him, so we'll go into these numbers here. In terms of efficiency, he's seen 0.7 takedowns against in round number 1, successful on 0.3 of them, 1.1 in round number 2 attempted, 0.6 being successful, and then round 3 has not allowed a round 3 takedown, 0.4 attempts shot there. And then again, the sub reversals against, not many people have trying to sub Oliveira, 0.3, 0.1, and 0.1 there. And the reason I bring it up is not a lot of people try to take him down. Let's go deep into the numbers here. Islam Makhachev obviously wants to get the fight down to the ground, going 2 for 2 in takedowns in round number 1, 0 for 1 in takedowns in round number 2. I think there was a scramble there. There was a knockdown. Yeah, that's how the fight got down to the ground for the Islam one in round number 2. And then before that, it was the only Kevin Lee that really attempted a takedown back in 2020. So leading up to the Makachev fight, it was Kevin Lee that controlled him, Oliveira there. I thought Kevin Lee won rounds 1 and possibly round 2 there. I went back and looked at the scorecards. It was an Oliveira round. Oliveira pretty busy off of his back, but again, we'll go into these numbers. But just wanted to say, Islam went 2 for 2 in takedowns. Kevin Lee got 2 takedowns on him. Nick Lentz getting 2 takedowns on him as well. Not a ton of control time though. And then even before that, Ricardo Lamas, you'd have to go back to 2016. Ricardo Lamas going 1 for 1 in takedowns in round 1. Before that, Nick Lentz again in 2015 going 0 for 6 in round 1, but 2 of 3 in round number 2. Overall, in his UFC career, he's seen 45 takedown attempts against. 20 of them have been successful, so just under 50% there. But again, hasn't seen a ton of takedown attempts, given that he has such a long UFC career. Again, 10 sub attempts against, seen 8 reversals there. Not a ton of control time here. I just want to highlight some of these control numbers. Islam Makhachev, again, 228 seconds of control in round number 1, 77 seconds in round number 2, that fight getting stopped in round number 2. Chandler getting 147 seconds of control time. Again, Kevin Lee 210, 176 for Kevin Lee. So these are decently big numbers. More than 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes control time when he did give up the takedowns. So worth noting there. Again, it's going to play into it. And the reason I bring it up is Arman Tsarukyan, his grappling is high-level grappling, man. Okay. If you missed it, Arman Tsarukyan's UFC debut was against Islam Makhachev, the current UFC lightweight champion. That fight was back and forth. We know how good Islam is on the ground. Tsarukyan was almost going toe-to-toe with him. He did lose a decision to Islam Makhachev, but that grappling was back and forth, back and forth. We saw it again in the Mateus Gamrot. Gamrot, a high-level wrestler as well. High-level scrambles and that there. So Arman Tsarukyan going to have high-level grappling. Let's see what the numbers say. He shoots 3.5 takedowns in round 1 on average. A successful 1 takedown success. 2.9 takedowns attempted in round number 2. 2.6 takedowns in round number 3. And then the 4-5 a little bit skewed against, again, because it was against Gamrot. But in terms of success rate, he averages 1 takedown success, 1.4 in round 2 and 1 in round 3. So on average, he's getting a takedown per round at least. And then some decent control numbers here. Let's go deep into these numbers because I do think it is worth noting. The Benil Dariush, that was a quick knockout, so there's no takedown attempts there, no control time there. Against Joaquim Silva here, okay? Tsarukyan shoots, he goes 4 for 5 on takedowns. Control time, 266 seconds in round number 1, 107 in round 2, 168 in round 3 there. So against Demir Ismagulov, shoots 21 takedowns, successful on 7 of them. Again, decent control time, 3 minutes, over 3 minutes, 3 minutes, almost 3 minutes of control time per round. Against Gamrot, shot 7 takedowns against Gamrot, only 1 successful against Gamrot. So shows you how good Gamrot was. That was a lot of scrambling there. Again, not a ton of control time from Gamrot until, not a ton of control time. Joel Alvarez, same thing. Gagos thing. Matt Frivola, he shot 12 takedowns, going successful, ton of them. A lot of control time there. Davi Ramos here. I wanted to highlight this one because Davi Ramos, another high-level BJJ guy. Arman Tsarukyan, not afraid to shoot in for a takedown. He did have 141 seconds here of control time in round number 1. They did not credit a takedown attempt. There was a scramble in there. Davi Ramos ends up on bottom. So it was ground control time that Arman Tsarukyan had. He wasn't afraid of getting into the guard. He didn't jump back up, threw a bunch of ground strikes here, threw eight ground strikes in round number 1 against Ramos. And then round 2, shot 4 takedowns, getting 1 there for only 12 seconds of control. Again, 35 seconds of control there. Ended up winning that fight. So just goes to show you, through his UFC career, shots 77 takedowns, 28 of them have been successful. Decent control time when he does get the fight down to the ground. Obviously, Charles Oliveira, a little bit different, and we'll touch on that briefly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the red defensive grappling. Again, actually, let's go. Let me just show you the Makhachev numbers. He fought Islam Makhachev on his UFC debut back in 2019. Arman Tsarukyan shot 12 takedowns, getting a takedown here against in round number 1. We know how good Islam's takedown defense are. They credited him with 1 takedown, 86 seconds of control. Red defensive grappling, if you see the Islam Makhachev going 6-9, 4 for 9 on takedowns. Those were the big numbers there. Today's Gamrot getting a couple of takedowns, but not a ton of control. Again, those coming in the later rounds of a 5-round fight. Other than that, man, I've seen some really good takedown defense from Arman. I've seen some really great get-ups from Arman. If you go back and watch the Islam one, he gets this takedown. Islam gets this takedown in round number 1. He trips him. He falls into mount. Islam Makhachev falls into mount with Arman's right arm trap. So Arman has one arm, Islam Makhachev in mount. He's able to get the arm out. He's able to get the legs out. And he pops back up, only giving up 103 seconds of control time to Islam Makhachev on his UFC debut when Arman is 22 years old. So again, worth noting there. In the second round, I think Islam had him in side control. Again, able to just stand up and get back up. So the defensive grappling from Arman, very high level stuff. That's what we've seen in the numbers. So the numbers seem to agree with what I saw on tape. Let me just go back into the fight in terms of how I see the fight going. So I talked about the grappling. In terms of how I see the fight going, again, both guys are going to be orthodox. So it's a little bit different with Oliveira fights. Again, Oliveira has not seen a round 4 and 5 fight round. And that's because Oliveira has this forward pressure to him. He comes forward, he throws some power, he's throwing these jumping knees, he's throwing these high kicks, he's throwing a lot of heavy strikes there, right? He's always in your face. That's why I think some of the leg kicks are a little bit harder because he's not in kicking range. He's in your face. He keeps a high guard. One thing I did notice with with Oliveira, he uses like a Muay Thai stance, hands up, but then he keeps a very light lead leg. And he's sort of defending shots to the body by lifting up the leg. He's defending leg kicks by lifting up the leg. That's why I wanted to touch on some of the leg kick numbers. So yeah, just in terms of tendencies, Oliveira is going to come forward. He's going to throw a jumping high kick. He's going to throw a jumping knee. He's going to load up on these right hands. He's going to throw a bunch of left hands and such. But again, the reason I bring up the leg is that there's only a couple ways to deal with the forward pressure. One is fighting off your back foot, circling off, trying to strike with him. We saw Arman try to do it against Davi Ramos. Did a good job of moving backwards, picking Ramos apart at range. So Arman Tsarukyan can do it. But again, Oliveira is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's going to be in your face there. So the other way of dealing with the pressure is level changing and getting a takedown. We saw, again, Arman not afraid to get Davi Ramos down. We talked about how often he's shooting takedown, averaging 3.5 takedowns shot or something in round number 1. So I don't think he's scared of taking Oliveira down to the ground. And so what I did when I watched the Charles Oliveira tape, I really paid attention to Charles Oliveira off of his back. So if we go back here again, that's why the numbers are very important. Not a lot of people want to take Oliveira down. So we watched the Nick Lentz fight. That was one. Again, Nick Lentz going 2 for 4. Not a lot of control time given up by Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz, he's a wrestler, but he's a little bit slowing down there, going 2 for 4 on takedowns. Again, Oliveira able to pop back up. The one that was important here was Kevin Lee, and Kevin Lee getting a reversal in round number 1. You can see he got 210 seconds of control time in round number 1. There was a lot of submission attempts from Oliveira on the ground, but Kevin Lee maintained top control. One thing Oliveira does is he throws up a triangle, doesn't get it, throws up an armbar, doesn't get it. Now he's rolling for a leg. He'll go back to submission. Kevin Lee able to sort of defend. Kevin Lee landing a couple of ground strikes thrown. Again, he threw 8 strikes, landed 3 of them. It's because Oliveira's 7 of 7 in round 1. It's because in that round, Oliveira was rolling for the leg, rolling for the heel hooks. Everybody knows when you're rolling for a heel hook, you can't really defend strikes. So Kevin Lee started banging on Oliveira. He's trying to grab the leg. He's trying to do some damage there. So keep that in mind. Oliveira pretty busy off of his back there, but did not get up. Kevin Lee controlled him for the first 2 rounds, 210 seconds of control in round number 1, 176 seconds of control in round number 2. Kevin Lee eventually gassing. He gassed in the middle of round number 2, but he was still able to get that takedown. Oliveira a little bit more complacent off of his back in round number 2. Again, Kevin Lee able to ride that out. And then start of round number 3, that's when he got finished because Kevin Lee did miss weight in that fight, worth noting there. Okay. So the next time that anybody really tries to take him down was Islam Makhachev. Same thing where Charles Oliveira walks him down, walks him forward, strikes in your face. They clinch up right away, and a lot of takedowns from Makhachev comes from the clinch or comes from the, from the clinch. Makhachev goes outside trip, gets the top control, and then we see here again, he goes 2 for 2 in takedowns, 228 seconds of control time for Makhachev. This one was a little bit different because Charles Oliveira was really complacent off his back. He gave up 2 minutes of control. Islam Makhachev, again, very heavy top control. Ends up getting up. Charles Oliveira uses a leg or tries to grab a leg, creates a scramble back up to their feet. But as soon as he gets back up to their feet, Islam Makhachev gets that takedown right back down to the ground. That's why he has 2 takedowns there. I bring this up because I see very similarities between Islam and Arman. Sorry. I'm not going to say that they're on equal level there, but Arman is very close, very good grappler as well. And then Islam, again, gets a takedown, gets top control, rides him out, and then when Oliveira stands back up, he just takes him right back down again. Charles Oliveira, not really used to people taking him down. He's such a wizard on the ground that he's not trying to train BJJ. Before I forget it, one of his defaults is anybody that tries to grab a leg. If you go back and watch the Nick Lentz fight, that's how he gets finished, is that Oliveira has this light leg where he's popping up, sort of like a Muay Thai stance. Nick Lentz sees that leg, tries to grab that leg, grabs a single. Right away, Oliveira grabs the guillotine, modified guillotine, and chokes out Nick Lentz. So his default single leg takedown defense for Oliveira is attacking the guillotine. So I think the guillotine is kind of live against Arman, but Arman, I think most of his takedowns come from double legs. He likes the level change blast into a double leg, so I think he's going to be savvy to it. I'm going to say he's probably not going to get submitted there by guillotine, but again, we'll go into that a little bit further. Just going back again to this control time, and I think it's important for this breakdown, and I know I'm on it again, but again, Islam controls him there. That's all the tapes that we got there, right? Even Dariush in that fight, Dariush ends up getting some top control time. Somehow they end up on bottom. Dariush on top. Oliveira a little bit busy off of his back. The thing with Dariush is he's not chest to chest. He stands up a bunch. He doesn't like the butterfly guard on his leg, so he's like standing up, trying to pass the guard, but getting back into half guard. Standing up again, lets him, and then eventually Charles Oliveira pushes him off, and stands back up and finishes him standing. But both is in the Dariush fight and Islam fight, we did see Charles Oliveira a little bit complacent. We did see him throw up a body lock from the bottom, close guard from the bottom, and spend a lot of time wasting minutes on the bottom there. So I think that's going to be a big part of this fight. Again, if Arman goes for the takedown, we might see a lot of control time. Arman winning minutes from the top time there, and then again, controlling the fight. But we have seen Oliveira sort of deal with adversity, right? He's been knocked down a bunch of times in his fights, coming back and winning. I think that Oliveira can be pretty busy off of his back, going for legs, creating scrambles. I think that Arman's pretty good with the scrambling, so I think we'll see a couple of minutes won by top control. I'm a little bit wary because we saw just this past weekend, we saw the Bulgarian fight versus C-Rod. Bulgarian getting 4.5 minutes of control time on C-Rod in round 2, but ended up losing that round for some reason. So I'm seeing a shift in terms of the control time really not mattering too much. And they're really going off of damage. Again, Oliveira off of his back. He's going to throw some elbows off his back. He's going to throw some hammer fists off his back. In terms of the optics, obviously you're going to favor the guy on top. Arman's going to throw a bunch of elbows. He has some nasty ground and pound with elbows. So I can see some elbows landing. I could see Oliveira getting opened up by cuts and then bleeding there. So, yeah, in terms of so the fight starts standing, right? They open up orthodox. Oliveira, we know, is going to be in your face. He's not going to take the outside of the cage. He's not going to circle out. He's going to walk forward. He's going to plant his flag. He's going to continue throwing kicks, throwing high kicks, all that stuff. So we have seen a tendency if Oliveira or if anybody throws a low kick on Arman, he does reach down, try to grab that kick, try to use it for his takedown. So be wary of that if Oliveira does throw a leg kick. I think it just helps Arman get the takedown. So if it stays standing, I did see Arman get cracked, and I want to talk about this in terms of a little bit. Arman Tsarukyan, he hasn't been knocked down in his career, but we have seen him get rocked. We've seen him get. Sorry, he has been knocked down 3 times in his UFC. This is offensive striking, defensive striking. Yeah, he has not been knocked down in his UFC career. We go back, we watched the Davi Ramos fight. Round number 1, Davi Ramos lands a clean right hand. Really early in the fight, Davi Ramos loads up on the right hand, hits Arman Tsarukyan, doesn't phase him. He just eats it, doesn't get wobbled, nothing. Against the Matt Frevola, same thing. Lands a big right hand, Arman Tsarukyan just eats it, nothing happens, right? You can't even tell that it landed. I think Jagagos landed one as well. Joaquim Silva, I think, landed one in the second round. That one actually wobbled him. You could see Arman visibly wobbled. Even then, he got wobbled and he got the takedown. He got the double leg there. So all of that to say, like, he is hittable, Arman. And I've seen him eat a couple of right hands, and that seems to be the weakness for him, is that straight right. But he has a decent chin on him. He can take some big punches here. So I don't think, like, its chin sort of bails him out, probably drops a couple other people, but he remains standing there. So I think for Charles Oliveira to win, again, he's going to be in your face. I think the chin prevents a lot of flash knockdowns, big moments there. I think Arman should be able to grapple him a little bit. On the feet, I do give the edge to Oliveira, just more diverse striking, more kicks, more elbows. He throws some flying elbows. For the striking wise for Arman, he's going to be mostly orthodox. He's going to throw a ton of kicks. He does look through the body kick. He does go. He has a very nice high kick. I want to talk about the Arman striking. What I found with Arman striking is that he's not your typical one and done, 1-2 done, and then break, and then these flashes. What he does is he ends a lot of his combos with kicks. So he'll go 1-2, then high kick. He'll go left high kick, left punch. So you're blocking that left kick. You're thinking the kick comes, and as he's putting the foot down, then he pops the jab and hits you with that right hand or that left side sort of thing. So he does a very good job of mixing in kicks and punches, throws them together at the end of his combos. I can definitely see him catching Oliveira with one of those strikes. But again, it's the difference is that Oliveira is going to be in his face, pressuring him in his face there. He's not able to get those kicks up very high. He's not able to throw. He's not going to be in kicking range is what I'm trying to get at. Oliveira's in your face there. So I think if Oliveira's in your face throwing big punches, as soon as he starts to land, I think the default for Arman is to level change, get a takedown. I don't think that Charles Oliveira's takedown defense is that great. I think Arman can get the takedown. I do think that Oliveira can create scrambles. I think that you might see back and forth, back up to the feet, but the only time we really saw any cardio issues was against round 4 and 5 against Mateus Gamrot, and that was a back and forth scrambling match. So I think early Arman's going to have some success grappling. I think he's going to get multiple takedowns. I can see Oliveira popping back up, but Arman's just going to shoot again and grab that takedown again. Ride out some top control. I think he's going to hang out in full guard. I didn't see a lot of guard passes for Arman, so it's not like he has a ton of submission attempts here. Let me just verify that with the numbers. We saw him just hang out in full guard, half guard sort of thing. He's not really like a guard passer, grab the back sort of thing. Submission attempts, 0 submission attempts. So 77 takedown attempts against, 22 takedowns successful, 0 submission attempts. And is he going to really submit Charles Oliveira? I don't think so. Again, Islam Makhachev got it by arm triangle. That's a little bit different there. So this is interesting, and we'll go into the numbers here. Let's go over to the numbers, get the fight sort of taped out. So here's my handy dandy bankroll tracker. What I like to do is I go through all of the numbers, assigning each outcome of the fight a certain percentage, and then that will tell me where the best bets are based on the line. It will also help me set the lines and where I think the value is. So let's get this started here. We've put Charles Oliveira on the blue side. We put Arman Tsarukyan on the red side. Let's start with Charles Oliveira to win by TKO. I think the TKO can come from a couple of various ways here. One being his jumping knee. He likes this double jumping knee that he throws. Very probably, pretty low percentage chance of him landing it, but he does throw it quite often. He does sit down on his punches. He's dropped, Chandler. He's dropped Gaethje there, so obviously he has some ability to land. Tsarukyan eats these big right hands, though, has not been dropped. So I just wonder how durable Tsarukyan is. Again, Charles Oliveira landed, so I'm going to give the TKO. We'll start with 20%. 1 in 5. Um, I think the TKO could come from ground and pound as well. I just don't think Oliveira is going to have a lot of top time, so I don't know about the ground and pound too much. Um, but I think it's live. It's about 15-20%. We'll leave that 20%, trying not to be too disrespectful. I might come back and change that. Charles Oliveira to win by submission. Again, 77% of his wins come from submission. I do think that if he gets the back, it's probably done there. He's live for heel hooks, knee bars. Obviously, he's live for triangles and arm bars if he's going to be on bottom. I think Arman's pretty good in defensively grappling, though. We just haven't seen him work out of a submission attempt there. I think he's able to keep it safe, but if I think that the fight's going to be majority on the ground, then I think the submission has to be live as well. I mean, I got to give some credit to the submission there as well. I'm going to put 20%. I might have to drop the TKO down a little bit. Charles Oliveira to win by decision. I do think that this is live. I think only 9% of his wins come from decision there, so I don't rate it too highly. I think Oliveira will spend a lot of time off of his back. And then it's going to come down to damage versus top control. It's possible with the new judging that Oliveira wins a decision by just throwing up damage, by throwing up submissions from his back. Again, Kevin Lee lost rounds 1 and 2 after having 3 minutes of control time because Oliveira is throwing up submissions. He's doing some damage from the bottom. So I could see an Oliveira decision. I'm going to leave it at 5% for now. Might be a little bit higher, but let me go over to the Tsarukyan side, see if I can get some there. Arman Tsarukyan to win by TKO. I do think it's live. We've seen Oliveira gets dropped numerous times in his fights, and I don't think Arman Tsarukyan is scared of going into the guard of Oliveira. I do think in the guard, the ground and pound is live as well. Some big elbows from full guard, some big hammer fists as well. I think over 3 rounds, the TKO is very live. The other thing to notice is that if Oliveira is going to roll for a leg lock or a heel hook or something, he's going to be controlled. He's going to have his hands tied up. I think the ground and pound from attempting a leg lock is live. I think that Arman probably stays out of trouble. On the feet there, I think his head kicks are pretty live. I think on the feet he's okay. Doesn't have a ton of punching power, but I do think the punching standing TKO is live as well. So I'm going to rate it probably about 25% there, because I do think that it can come from either way, and I think the key thing to remember is Charles Oliveira forward pressure. It's not like he's going to take some time off, circle the outside. We're going to get in your face Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira is kind of hittable, so we'll leave it at 25% there. Arman Tsarukyan to win by submission. Again, he has not attempted a submission yet, and Charles Oliveira is going to be very, very difficult to submit. However, I don't want to say it's 0 because Makhachev got the submission on him. Makhachev, again, a different grappler there. I can't see many submissions where Arman really gets it in. Maybe it's arm triangle. He does like to set it up, maybe. But I think he's going to be hanging out in full guard mostly. It's going to be a lot of ground and pound, so I can't give it more than 5%. I'll leave it at 5% there. Maybe if Tsarukyan gets the back and chokes out Oliveira there, but I don't rate it too high there. But and then Arman Tsarukyan to win by decision. So I do think that this is live, and I do think it comes from top control. I think it comes from control time. I think it comes from takedowns. If I'm correct in that Arman shoots 3.5 takedowns each round, gets a bunch of takedowns, and Oliveira is a little bit complacent off of his back, I think that Oliveira does a good job of controlling the wrist, limiting the ground and pound. And then again, he's not going to get submitted, so I can see Arman winning at least 2 rounds to win a decision there. So I think the decision is live. And I do think that a lot of this fight plays out on the ground there as well. So let's put 25% there. Okay, so we're about equal here. Let me read it out. I think we're a little bit off. Let's go 30% on the decision. I'm going to drop the TKO to 15% here. Let me read it out. You tell me if it looks off here. Charles Oliveira to win by TKO, 15% plus 567 or better. Charles Oliveira to win by submission, 20% plus 400 or better. Win by decision, 5% plus 1900 or better. On the Tsarukyan side, win by TKO, 25%. Plus 300 or better. Win by submission, 5%, 1900 or better. And win by decision, 30%, 233 or better. Total money line on the Oliveira side, 40%, plus 150 or better. 60% for the Tsarukyan side, minus 150 or better there. I think it looks correct. At most, you would take off another 5% on the Oliveira side. I don't want to take it away from submission because the submission is very live. The TKO is kind of live as well. It's going to be disrespectful, I think, if you give Oliveira only 10% chance to win. And we've seen Tsarukyan eat some big shots there. And then you do have to leave the decision at 5%. So I'm having a hard time seeing Charles Oliveira less than 40%. I mean, even if you drop 15% to sub, dropping it to 35%, and then you gave it back to Tsarukyan, decision at the most, 65-35, giving a money line of 35% plus 186 on Charles Oliveira, minus 186 on Tsarukyan's side is the highest I can really see it. And the reason that I bring it up is that I am aware of the odds there. I got some early Tsarukyan number at minus 135, I believe. That number is ballooned out now. Let me just pull it up what the numbers are here. Arman Tsarukyan minus 215. The Charles Oliveira side plus 185. So 185, 215. 185, 215. So we put the current odds into the Kelly Criterion calculator here. At 35%, it's saying the odds are about right on the Charles Oliveira side. At 65%, we need minus 186 or better. Again, the current odds are minus 215, telling us it's minus EV on that side there. I think it's about right. 65%. I'll be a little bit less, and I'm going to drop it down to 30%. I'm going to give back the 20% to submission. And then I see it as 60-40 here. So 60% on Tsarukyan's side, 40% on the Oliveira side. Now it's recommending a play of 0.9 units at plus 185. I do imagine that the Charles Oliveira line is going to come down. So if you like that Oliveira side, I would suggest taking it now. I think a lot of the casual fans see Oliveira. They're not really, like Arman Tsarukyan, not really a household name, not really popular. They know Oliveira. We saw it in the UFC 300 press conference, everybody hating on Tsarukyan, talking shit to Tsarukyan, all that stuff. So I think Oliveira money is going to come in, especially at dog money, especially at plus 185. So get the Charles Oliveira line now and then monitor the Arman Tsarukyan side. I think that fight line's about right there. Not goes to decision. Look at this here. Not goes to decision. 65% minus 186 or better. Goes to decision. 35% plus 186 or better. I think that's about right. Worth noting then again, Charles Oliveira does not like to go to decision. Not a ton of his fights go to decision. So just the pace that he pushes. I just think though, again, Arman's not going to find a ton of finishes with ground and pound. I think that he can control Oliveira a little bit with the takedowns, and I think he can win a decision there. So that's my breakdown. That's my numbers there. I think I'm going to be picking Arman Tsarukyan to win by decision as my official pick. I do think that Oliveira is probably the value side in terms of where the number is. But then we'll get you some best bets. I'll tell you where we're actually landing on. Again, we got some minus 135 on the Tsarukyan side. The line's ballooned a little bit out there, so I don't know if I'm going to add to it. I am going to the event at UFC 300, so I'm going to probably force some plays regardless of value or not. So throw that out the window. We'll let you know there. Anything I do post, I post over to patreon.com/fightingstats. You don't want to miss that. Apologies for the long breakdown, but I did have a lot to say in this. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. If I'm missing anything or not considering anything, let me know there as well. Let me know what side you're on. Again, my name is Art C, and this is Fighting Stats. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets, over at patreon.com/fighting stats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.